As that is started, we're breaking away from Mark chapter 4 to go to Nehemiah chapter 4, simply because in Nehemiah 4, Jesus went from parable to parable to parable, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to continue to go on and on and on with those parables, but I also wanted to touch on something that I know we all deal with. We might be dealing with it right now. We might be struggling with it in our life, and maybe just to give you a word you might just need to hear tonight, and that's talking about discouragement. Discouragement. Discouragement is a very real element in our lives. Discouragement is defined as loss of confidence or enthusiasm, an attempt to prevent something by showing disapproval or creating difficulties as a deterrence. Jennifer Waddle said, discouragement comes when things are going great, and it comes when things are already down. But no matter when it comes, it hurts. When we think about this idea of discouragement, we live in a world that has a lot of discouragement going on. Because of the war in Ukraine, because of the COVID pandemic, because of the economy, because of, you name it, school, because of just the state of affairs politically. There's a lot of things that are discouraging. I read this December of 2020, so a little over a year and a half ago. The U.S. Labor Department said 663,000 Americans are labeled as discouraged workers. They're ones that have tried to get a job, and they can be in the workforce, but they have not looked for employment in a month. Discouraged workers usually have given up on searching for a job because they found no suitable employment options or failed to secure a job when they apply. In June 2020, the CDC released data that suggests that 1 in 4 adults ages 24 or 18 to 24 have considered suicide. According to a youth poll of 2,500 Americans aged 18 to 29, 51% of young Americans said they had at least several days in the previous 2 weeks that they felt down, depressed, or hopeless. That's a sad place to be. We live in a place where we battle discouragement in every facet of our lives. It happens in good times, it happens in bad times. And how we battle discouragement or deal with discouragement will determine everything. Discouragement, if handled poorly, will spiral into bitterness, defeat, depression, and you can harm yourself and others. However, if we can deal with discouragement in a healthy way, in a good way, things might turn around. Just by a show of hands, we all have ever been discouraged some point in time in your life. Past, present, future. We're all, we've all dealt with it. We need to know what brings discouragement, but also we need to know how to overcome it. In Nehemiah, we have a people on mission from God who battled discouragement. In Nehemiah, which, just thinking back, Nehemiah was the very first book of the Bible I ever preached through here, all the way back in 2011. And Nehemiah is the story of the Jews leaving Babylon and going to rebuild a wall in Jerusalem. In the course of historical events, we had the nation of Israel leaving Egypt. They go and they wander to the Promised Land. They finally get into the Promised Land, and there they stayed. And then, because they had turned from God, around 585 BC, God brought judgment on them. The Babylonian Empire swept in and took God's people away into captivity. During this time, Persia rose to power and overthrew the Babylonians. And here in Nehemiah, we have Nehemiah, a Jew who was a high official in the Persian court. He heard about Jerusalem being broken down, and it broke his heart. He wept. His face was gaunt. It was bad. And he said to the king, "King, can I go back and rebuild the wall?" So he brought men and women back, and he went to go rebuild the wall. But here in Nehemiah chapter 4, he faces discouragement. He faces a trial. We're looking at verses 1 through 23. I'm already going to tell you, we're only going through one part of this. I don't have enough time. Y'all don't want to stay till 9, I don't think. So we're only going to go through chapter 4, verses 1 through 11. So if you will, follow along with me. It says, "Now when Sanballat heard that we were building the wall, he was angry and greatly enraged, and he jeered at the Jews. And he said in the presence of his brothers in the army of Samaria, 'What are these feeble Jews doing? Will they restore it for themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they finish up in a day? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of rubbish and burn ones at that?' Tobiah the Ammonite, who was beside him, and he said, 'Yes, what they are building, if a fox goes up it, he will break it down. It will break down their stone wall. Hear, O our God, for we are despised. Turn back their taunt on their own heads, and give them up to be plundered in a land where they are not captives. Do not cover their guilt, and let not their sin be blotted out from your sight. For they have provoked you into anger in the presence of the builders.' So we built the wall, and all the wall was joined together to half its height. For the people had a mind to work. But when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabs and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the repairing of the walls of Jerusalem was going forward, and that the breaches were beginning to be closed, they were very angry. And they all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and to cause confusion in it. And we prayed to our God and set a guard as a protection against them day and night. In Judah it was said, 'The strength of those who bear the burdens is falling. There is too much rubble. By ourselves we will not be able to rebuild the wall.' And our enemies said, 'They will not know or see till we come among them and kill them and stop the work.'" How do we deal with adversity? How do we deal with discouragement? Because that's what was going on here. We're going to look first tonight at the sources of discouragement. Next week we're going to look at the responses to discouragement. But as we look at the sources of discouragement, we're going to gain a little bit of encouragement. My hope is we'll gain a little bit of insight tonight. Notice in the sources of discouragement, we've got a couple of them that happen here in this passage. In verses 1 through 3, we see the first place of discouragement is ridicule. Sanballat was the guy that said, he jeered at the Jews. He was a governor of a nearby territory. In fact, if you go in and you look at all of the places and all the people that are mentioned here, it's basically everybody all around Jerusalem. It was everybody at every different north, south, east, and west place. He looked and he saw the Jews were serious about the project. And Sanballat was very steamed about it. So what did he do? He ridiculed everybody that he could. He spoke out against them. And I thought this was very interesting. Thomas Carlyle said this: "Ridicule is the language of the devil." Ridicule is the language of the devil. Sanballat and Tobiah, they were mouthpieces. And what did they say? You're going to fail. You're not doing any good. You're weak. You don't have the resources you need. Look at all those stones. You don't have the manpower. They were the ones that were ridiculing. They were ridiculing the Jews as they attempted to do their work. By the way, is ridicule present in the world in which we live in today? Go on Facebook and write a short sentence that is pro-life. Your phone won't be quiet for like 3 years because people are going to attack you. You know, say you believe life is sacred or begins its conception and should be cherished. You'll get attacked, called names, hated. Not anybody's going to deal with the issue at hand, but everybody is going to ridicule and try to break you down internally. By the way, when we talk about students in our schools, internally is how somebody wants to break somebody down now, isn't it? It's through text messages. It's through words spoken. It's through gossip. It's more mental than it is physical. Because ridicule in that manner can be effective. People who would stand bravely when shot at many times will cower meekly when laughed at. That's what we see the enemies of God doing. By the way, the enemies that we face, if we're going to be serving God, they're going to do the same thing. Notice, they belittled their qualities. What are these feeble Jews doing? What are these weak people doing? They can't do nothing. They're not going to be able to do anything. So he put down their qualities. By the way, that's a great thing for us to remember as a church. Sanballat looked at them and said, hey, they're feeble. They can't do anything. Listen, though we might be small, we're working for God. And with God, that's the great equalizer, isn't it? Our motivation is key. Notice they derided their ambitions. Will they restore the wall? You're never going to get done with that. You're not going to get done with any type of project you're going to get done with. I still, in my heart, have a desire. And that desire is simple. I want to clean up the basement of the house. That has been my heart's desire, I think, for about 38 years now. I know it can be done. I just don't have a dumpster at the moment. But it's a big task. But I know this. If I keep working at it, I'll get it done. But you know what would hurt me? Somebody saying some bad stuff. Oh, you're never going to get that done. It's too big of a project. Don't even bother. That's hurtful, isn't it? It deflates. Anybody ever been deflated with what they've been doing? You're working so hard, you're motivated, and then just somebody pulls the rug out from under you. They derided their ambitions. They mocked their optimism. When they say, will they offer sacrifices? It's likely they're saying, hey, do you think you can pray the wall up? Do you believe your devotion to God will make the wall magically rise from the rubble? They mocked the optimism. There was a girl in an art class once, used to not pay attention, but during the class, the girl just paid attention and was told to draw something. And as the teacher looked, was going around, went up to this little girl and said, hey, you know what? I noticed you were paying attention really intently. That's great. I'm glad you have a flair for art. What are you drawing? And the little girl said, oh, I'm drawing a picture of God. The teacher was like, well, that's amazing, but nobody knows what God looks like. And she said, oh, don't worry, they will when I get done. Enthusiasm, that optimism, it means it has that push. They lampooned also their enthusiasm. Will you finish in a day? It's too big of a project. You can't do it. They undermined also their confidence. Can they bring stones back to life? Can they bring the burnt stones? You going to give them life again? They tried to chop them down every way that they can. By the way, the main target of discouragement, the main target of ridicule and everything else we're going to be talking about tonight, the main target is hope. The main target is hope. You think about it, hope makes us do some amazing things, doesn't it? Hope pushes us forward. You know, the idea of if you're sick, if you've been in a car wreck and you're greatly injured, why do you go to the hospital? Because that's where the ambulance will take you. Why do you go to the hospital if you broke your leg?
Somebody said it.
You got to get somebody to say it, right? Because you hope there's somebody that's there who can do it, right? If you've got a nasty cut on your arm and you need it all sewn up, you go to the hospital because that's where they are. They're the ones that offer hope for healing. They're the ones that offer you hope that things will get better. What happens when somebody doesn't have hope? What happens when somebody is ridiculed and broken down and hope has utterly and completely left them? What are some of the outcomes of situations like that? Depression, big one. Suicide is one that is absolutely... You think about COVID, for the longest time, we had no hope. People were isolated. People didn't have any connections. And suicides went up. Why? Because there was no hope. No connection, no interaction. Ridicule, the words that are spoken, go here. They attack our mind. And that was what was going on here. They wanted to undermine the faith and the confidence they have in God. They wanted to undermine all of what was going on. So the first source of discouragement that was there was ridicule. But let me give you some application, some simple application. When you are ridiculed, first, remember what you value. Remember what you value. The reason why things like that get under your skin and ridicule gets under your skin is because you value what other people say. You know what? Many a time we value the wrong opinions. You know, I've ever valued the wrong opinion in life. Oh, that looks wonderful on you, says the person that's going to sell you the thing. A lot of times we go through life and we have a set group of friends. And sometimes that group of friends can be a bad group of friends and put us down in a bad pathway. You know what? If we value what is right and what is good, if we value the right opinions, then it'll set us on a pathway where we can't be discouraged easily. By the way, that's a double-edged sword. How many in here have the ability, I'm not saying you would do it, but how many of y'all have the ability to ridicule somebody? We all speak English. We all can. That means something. That means our words are very powerful. And we are all placed in people's lives, that rather than ridiculing, we should encourage. We should build up. Because remember, we have to remember what we value, but also this. Remember what ridicule says about you. If you are doing great things for God, if you're working for God, if you're doing things, if you're doing all of those things and people are ridiculing you, understand you're doing things for God, and that's the reason why. 1 Peter 4 in verse 14, if you are insulted for the name of Christ, you are blessed, because the Spirit of glory and of God rest upon you. If you're insulted for the name of Christ, you are blessed. So first, we have the source of ridicule. Notice also there's another force. In the second place, it's force. It's force. Nehemiah 7 and 8 says, but when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabs and the Amorites and the Ashdodites heard that the repairing of the walls of Jerusalem were going forward, the breaches were beginning to close, they were very angry. And they all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and to cause confusion in it. Here was the scheming. We're going to attack. And by the way, all of those places all around. So you can imagine, here Jerusalem is, they've got a wall that's not really that high. And what's the rumors everybody's saying? We're going to come and attack you. So here it is. You've got north, south, east, west. Everybody all around is going to attack you. That is a threat of force. The idea was, we don't like what you stand for, therefore we're going to make a plan of attack and threaten you. By the way, does that happen today? Do we, as believers, or do believers in our world get threatened? Or do people in general get threatened today?
All the time.
All the time. How many of y'all know what Yelp is? What's Yelp? Yelp is a website where if you go out to eat somewhere, doesn't matter if you go to the cutting board, you go to Homestead, you go to Pueblo Viejo, you go anywhere, you can go and you can place a review. You can give them a great review, or you can give them an absolutely horrible review. The thing is, Yelp is the #1 site where people will go to look and figure out if a restaurant's any good or not. So you can imagine, you can be pretty mean with their Yelp review. You can say horrible things. You can say things even that aren't true, and they have a difficult time taking those things off. And there's a lot of people that threaten. Hey, I didn't get what I wanted. Hey, this happened to me. And there's a threat that's there. Think about this: social media attacks, accusations. Think about the idea of what all has happened in politics, and the riots and the burnings that we had happening. All of that is saying, I don't like what's going on. We're going to take a force. And you know what? I don't know about you. I think some of the greatest advice Randy ever gave me was, don't watch the news. I mean, I will agree. That's not a bad piece of advice right there. Watch the weather, turn it off. Because how many of y'all got discouraged over the last 2 years watching any amount of the news? I mean, I just barely. Like, this is CNN. I'm like, that's enough for me. I'm turning it off. Or whatever it is. It's discouraging. Hearing what people do, what people are plotting to do, what people are threatening to do. And that's what the people of God dealt with. So, what do we do? If we are discouraged, how do we combat this? Let me give you some simple applications. there's force being used or threat of force, remember this. The end goal of force is not correctness. It is control. The end goal of force is not correctness. It is control. We think about all the forces that are against the church today, wanting the church to change the Word of God, change the way we believe, change the things we say. It's not correctness anybody wants. It's control. We want you to act the way we want you to act. Enemies of Jerusalem, they weren't protesting the presence of the Jews. They weren't protesting anything like that, but they had a lack of control. Also this, when you are discouraged because of the threat of force, go back to what you believe in and look at its value. Go back to what you believe in and look at its value. I don't know how well y'all know the Protestant Reformation, but Martin Luther was one of the spearheads of that. Martin Luther stood up against the Roman Catholic Church. He stood up and began reading the Bible, and he said, no, you know what? I am only going to be preaching the Word of God, and salvation is by faith alone. He said, the just shall live by faith. And of course, Rome really didn't like this, so they arrested him. They did a bunch of stuff to him, and finally, they bring him before all of these archbishops. They bring him before all of these people, and they go, okay, look, Martin Luther, are these your books? And he said, well, I'm not 100% sure. They read all of the book's titles to him and said, yes, a lot of them he's written. And he was talking about all of the bad things of Rome, all of the things that they were doing wrong. And then the archbishop said, listen, do you renounce all of what you said? Basically, are you going to get in line the way we want to believe, or are we going to have to do something bad to you? Martin Luther had the weight of the world on his shoulders just then, because if he had answered saying, forget it, I renounce all of these things, he knew he could be killed. But it's interesting what Martin Luther said. It says he answered cautiously, saying it would be a rash and dangerous to reply to such a question until I had meditated thereupon in silence and retreat, lest I incur the anger of our Lord. Martin Luther had asked basically for a day to go back and pray. Now think about this. How often do we get discouraged? Somebody is threatening us, somebody is ridiculing us, there's some threat of force on us. When we get shaken, but the thing we got to go back on is our foundation. We've got to go back to the very truth of the Word of God. How many of y'all remember the place where you accepted Christ as your Lord and Savior? Y'all remember the place. Timing, place. I remember my place, and my place is not glamorous. It was after a revival meeting from preacher Ed Ballou, and I got home, and I was just under conviction. I knew I needed to give my heart and life to Jesus Christ. In my house, there was a new building, or new room being built on, and there was no carpet yet. All of it was just wood. And I got home, and I went, and I knelt down on that wood. And I remember the board, the way it looked and all. And that's where I gave my life to Jesus Christ. And that is the surest foundation that I've got. That anytime I'm discouraged in life, if I get shaken, I get rattled, I got to go all the way back to the point where it wasn't about me anymore in life. It's about Jesus. Go back to that foundation. Go back to what you believe and look at and remember its value. Finally, this. Another source of discouragement is burnout. Burnout. Verse 10, in Judah it was said, the strength of those who bear the burden is failing. There is too much rubble. By ourselves we will not be able to rebuild the wall. One of the things that's true many a time is, a lot of times we want to do great things for God, but a lot of times we get burnt out. A lot of times we go through and we get tired. And we think, oh no, it's never going to get done. We battle fatigue. The strength of those that bear the burden is falling. And this is a reality. There's frustration. There's too much rubble. The job is more than we can do. But also, I want to spend a little time on that one. How many of y'all ever been frustrated in life? What's something that frustrates you? Don't be too dramatic on that one. Just kind of something that frustrates you.
Traffic.
Oh, yes. Be frustrated in traffic.
COVID-19.
COVID-19. Anybody ever gotten frustrated with a hobby they have? Something they love, but they're frustrated with sometimes? Sewing needle. Not being able to find the right color of paint. I'll give you one that frustrates me. Allison loves cross-stitching. And in cross-stitching, you have to get these little things of thread, but the way you get them is you got to get the right number of them. And, the numbers go from like 000 to 87,482. And she'll have a piece of paper saying, I need number 5128. We'll go up, and we'll go to Hobby Lobby, we'll go to Michael's, we'll go somewhere, and I'm looking, and I'm going like 5126, 5127, and there ain't no 5128. And every other one is just packed out, and you're like, no, I can't get it.
That's not Hobby Lobby, that's Walmart.
All right, it's Walmart. No, Walmart will go something like 600, 650, 700, 8,000.
Hobby Lobby always has it.
Yeah, Hobby Lobby always has it. So
Drive too far.
that's frustration. Because it's the idea in our own strength, we can't get what we want. We can't do what we need. King David is a unique character. That's a great illustration of this. King David was a man after God's own heart. But here's the thing. What were some of the bad things David did? David did some bad things.
He killed someone.
Uriah the Hittite had killed. Who else? What else? Stole another man's wife. I mean, he messed up. But the Bible so often portrays him in a good manner. Now, I believe part of that is because he reacted correctly. But another is this. David was a man who consistently saw God's strength as being more important than his weaknesses. Let me say that again. David was a man who consistently saw God's strength as being more important than his weaknesses. That's an amazing thing to think about. That is an absolutely amazing observation. When we are frustrated, when we are discouraged, remember, it's not about our strength. Our strength is rather weak. God's strength is really what matters. Finally, fear. Fear. People were bone weary. People were worried about all of the other things that might be coming in. But one of the things we're going to see is they went back and had a faith rooted in God. Let me give you 3 real quick closing thoughts and we'll be done. Number 1 is this. Discouragement is a reality of life. We need to be aware and be prepared for it. Plain and simple. If we're prepared for it when it comes, we're like, oh, I knew it was going to come. But notice also this. Where we find our strength and purpose will determine our battles with discouragement. Where we find our strength, where we find our purpose, it'll determine the battles. If we find our strength in the Lord, if we find our strength and our purpose in Christ, discouragement is going to be a different type of battle. And finally this. Every one of us has the power to encourage or discourage others. Therefore, we've got to use our words wisely. I forget who said it. I want to say it was Mark Twain. I could be completely wrong. He said he could live a full week off a good compliment. I was like, you know what? That's about right. Somebody says something that builds you up. Oh, you're sitting on cloud 9. How do you feel after somebody's torn you down? Not good. Nobody's like, woo, let's do that again. So the idea of discouragement, if you're discouraged today, my encouragement is remember Christ. Remember your foundation. Remember it's not about your strength. It's about God's. Because God's strength is really what matters. But also my encouragement is for you this week, remember the power of your own words. That if you're one that might slip up, that might ridicule somebody for something, go in and say, whoa, wait a minute here. Let me encourage somebody. Let me help and change this situation with a good word spoken in good time. Questions, comments, observations. I'm sorry I did not mean to go that long, but I did. Let's bow in a word of prayer as we close tonight. Father, Lord, as we leave here tonight, I pray that you'd go with us, you'd help us. Lord, we saw the reality of discouragement, and I pray that you would help us to leave this place, to go out and encourage others, to lift others up, to bless others. Father, I pray that you would guide and direct us as only you can. Lord, I pray for anyone here that's battling discouragement. Lord, I pray that you would help them through this. To remember that our foundation is in you, our strength is in you, our purpose is in you. Regardless of what words might be spoken outside, we know that it doesn't affect you at all. Go with us now as we leave this place, for it's in your precious and holy name we pray. Amen. Thank y'all so much.